Another day, another bit of drama at Manchester United, and I'm absolutely fed up of it. Two more injuries being reported today, and another statement. All we've been this season is statement FC, injury FC. And I'm just so fed up with it. And the statement has come out from Maguire's mum, of all people. And I'm sorry, I just find it embarrassing. I find this victim mentality from Maguire absolutely embarrassing. I do not condemn abuse. I think Maguire does get too much abuse, and I don't condemn that in the slightest. But Maguire brings on a lot of the criticism himself, and I think everyone has a fair right to criticise Maguire because he's not been good enough for United. He could have gone to West Ham, but he wanted a 12 million payout. And at the end of the day, if Maguire had gone to West Ham and taken himself out of the England firing line and played well at West Ham and proved that he deserved to play again for England and got lots of minutes for West Ham, then I think, that's what Maguire should have done. But with this whole Maguire situation, I think, yeah, he gets too much abuse. He's better than people say he is, and I think he can be a good centre back and have a good career for a top 10 Premier League side or a top team in a league abroad. But everyone has a right to criticise him when he scores against Albania, puts his fingers in his ears, saying, he doesn't need to prove himself in interviews and he prefers his England career to his United career and stuff like that in interviews. I think every Man United fan has the right to criticise Maguire and not want him at the club because he's not been good enough. And I'm going to get into Maguire's interview and all of that in a second. But at the end of the day, I don't like this victim mentality that Maguire's this big victim, putting out statements, Southgate making a big scene. Look, Maguire gets too much abuse. There's too many silly kids out there, and Maguire is a lot better than people think he is. But at the end of the day, he's a player that doesn't help himself. He's a player as a Man United fan that I won't have sympathy for because he could have gone to West Ham and he stayed and demanded money. He doesn't deserve the abuse he gets, but he deserves criticism, and you cannot complain about criticism. But I'm going to get into the injury news. Then I'll get into Maguire's interview, and then I'll get into his mum's statement. And I just have to say, I'm fed up with really Maguire's mum doing a statement because it just brings unnecessary drama to United. I think as if Ten Hag hasn't got enough drama or gossip to deal with. It's like Kardashians FC. But it was said Anthony Martial left Carrington just after 5 minutes this morning. So unless he's forgot something and Ten Hag's made him go home to get something really important, let's be honest, it's Martial. What does this mean? Normally when a player leaves Carrington after 5 minutes, they're injured. What will it 100% mean if it's Martial? Martial is injured. Surprise, surprise. Very glad Højlund is back and fit. But Martial's not even played this international break. He's got injured. Martial went to bloody Disneyland or Dubai or somewhere and got injured. Martial went to a water park in Dubai this week and has come back with an injury, probably from going on a water slide. The guy has breadstick legs, but I'm not too bothered about Martial being injured, actually. I've been saying it's been breaking news the last couple of weeks that he's still fit. But the injury that concerns me is the Lisandro Martinez injury. And Maguire's obviously said in his interview he knows he's going to have game time coming up for United. And well, look, Maguire, for your sake, I do hope you play well. I really do hope you play well. We need you to play well because you're going to have to play with Varane and Martinez injured. But it's said that there's little chance that Martinez could pair with Lindelof against Brighton on Saturday. He'll train with the squad and they'll see if he's 100% match fit. But the suggestion coming out is that Lisandro Martinez might not be 100% fit to play against Brighton, which means Maguire is going to get his opportunities and chances, as he mentioned in his interview. And look, I hope Maguire plays well. I really do. I hope Maguire, when he plays for United, has a good season. But the fact that, Varane is injured, Martinez is injured, and we are going in with Lindelof and Maguire, who Ten Hag didn't really want as a pairing against Brighton, is a bit concerning. For me, if only we had Kim Min-jae. If only we'd signed Kim Min-jae this summer, we'd be playing Kim Min-jae and Lindelof, and we'd be in such a good position. And Todibo was another player we almost signed, been brilliant for France, almost looks like he could operate in that right-back role. And I just look at it and I just think the board should have given Ten Hag a centre-back. I don't care if they had to spend an extra 25, 30 million. They should have got him another centre-back. Even if Maguire refused to leave, we still should have brought Pavard or Todibo in and just said, well, you won further down the line, Maguire. That's what we should have done. But let's get into Maguire's interview. Maguire said a few things in an interview today, and they were quite interesting points. So I want to dive into Maguire's interview. So Maguire, first of all, spoke about his failed move to West Ham. He said, we just didn't come to an agreement. Man United were happy for me to stay, and I was happy to fight for my place. I want to do that every time I train or play. I will give everything. So that's what Maguire said. He said we couldn't come to an agreement. Reportedly, Man United were willing to give him a £6 million payout. Maguire wanted a £12 million payout to go to West Ham. And we all know he didn't go to West Ham because of the money. Ten Hag said to him, look, if you stay, I do have a place for you, but you are the 4th, 5th choice centre-back. You are quite far down the pecking order. But if you want to stay and fight for your place, that's up to you. But personally, I can't guarantee you game time. You know, I want this centre-back to come in and replace you. I'd advise you to leave. Is exactly what Ten Hag did. And Maguire said, "Oh, no, I'm going to stay and fight for my place because I'm on 200 grand a week here." James Garner did an interview today, and he had the exact same conversation with Ten Hag that I assume Ten Hag had with Maguire. You could stay and be a squad player and fight for your place, and you'll maybe get a chance coming up with injuries and stuff, but you're not going to be a regular starter. But if you prove yourself, you might be. That's what Maguire got. You're not going to be a regular starter, but there's injuries, you get a chance. If you prove yourself, you've got more opportunities to play la-di-da. James Garner went and left. Harry Maguire went and stayed. For me, Harry Maguire stayed at United despite not being good enough, despite a good offer from West Ham, but he stayed at United for the money, didn't play for United, gets called up for England, wonders why people are annoyed that he's playing for England with no minutes this season. I actually would play Maguire for England, despite saying that, just because I do think he's England's best, the most experienced centre-back after John Stones, but I'd be looking to give Gay and Colwill some more minutes and fade Maguire out if I was Gareth Southgate due to his lack of minutes. But when you're playing for England with no start to your club, when you've been poor for your club for the last 2 seasons, you know, people are going to criticise you. Why is he playing for England? People are going to criticise why you stayed at United, why you didn't go to West Ham. I think for me, you know, Maguire stayed for the money, and you know, I think people have the right to criticise him for not going to West Ham. I think if Maguire went to West Ham, it would have been one of the smartest things he could have done. And I don't agree with the abuse he gets, and I think people make him out to be worse than he is, and people say horrible things and threaten him, and I don't agree with that. But I think he, you know, to criticise him, I don't see a problem with that. And he also speaking about, you know, the stick he gets and everything as well. But Maguire was asked about his game time. He said, "I know at the moment when I've not started a game in the first 4 games of the season, the story comes to me and I want to play games, I want to play football." Maguire says, "I want to play games, I want to play football." Well, you would have got that at West Ham. Can't lie. Like, again, I just don't have much sympathy for him. And maybe I'm being horrible. Like, when people do horrible things like threaten his family and stuff, I have sympathy for him. But when people are just criticising his performance, I don't really have much sympathy. And Maguire said, look, you know, he's a bit sad he didn't start one of the first 4 games of the season, so he knows that the story is going to come to him. Why is he playing for England when he didn't start these first 4 games of the season? But he said, look, I want to play football week in, week out, which is fair enough, but you would have got that at West Ham. Maguire also said, I can deal with criticism. The first 4 weeks were hard because it was 1 game a week and the manager didn't select me. But we have lots of games coming up. I'm sure I'll play lots of games, he told The Express. And look, Maguire now feels that he's going to get a bit more game time because we're going to have 2 games a week from now on. There's going to be rotation. He's going to play a lot more. He said obviously he didn't like being on the bench, but he believes he's going to get a lot more game time. And with our injury record, with the fixtures coming up, I do believe Maguire is going to get a fair share of game time this season. And I really hope, for Maguire's sake and Man United's sake, that Maguire plays really well when he gets game time for United this season. I really hope he does play well. I think playing with Onana will benefit him more. I think playing with Martinez will benefit him more than playing with Lindelof when Martinez is fit. So I do hope, for Maguire's sake, when he does get game time at United, because he is going to get a fair bit of game time at United this season because of injuries, because of having 2 games a week, I hope that he is good. He says, I'm sure I'm going to play lots of games, and he said, I'm going to prove myself. And look, I hope he does. But if we're playing with Maguire in a lot of games and he's consistently being poor and costing us, that's, for me, when I'm like, no. Do you know what I mean? For me, I hope he is good, because if he plays like he did 2 seasons ago, then not for me. I have to say that. And look, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think Maguire was actually bad last season when he played. I think Maguire, for the most part, you know, didn't play a big role last season, but when he did have opportunities, I thought that Maguire was all right last season. I don't think Maguire was particularly bad last season at all when he played. But it's like, at the end of the day, when you're on 200 grand a week, you know, you should be playing week in, week out for United, and he's not good enough to play week in, week out for United as a squad option, as a bench option. I think, sure, decent option, but I think the mentality from him, and just the fact that he's not consistent enough and that he's not been good enough with many chances, for me, I would have sold Maguire and I would have brought in a replacement. But let's get into the statement. Harry Maguire's mother has said that the abuse her son receives has gone so far, and it's gone beyond football and an Instagram story. So another statement's coming out from Maguire's mum saying, as a mum, seeing the level of negative and abusive comments in which my son is receiving from some fans, pundits, and the media is disgraceful and totally unacceptable to any walk of life, never mind someone who works his socks off for club and country. I was there in the stands as usual. It's not acceptable what's been created over nothing. And look, abusive comments are not acceptable. People that are threatening him, saying absolutely horrible things, of course, not acceptable. Negative comments saying, does he deserve to be playing at the moment? Has he been good enough? That's fine. I think criticism, negative comments can be fine. Abusive when I draw the line as well. Maguire's mum says, I understand that in the football world there are ups and downs, positives and negatives, but what Harry receives has gone far beyond football. And I do think he has received abuse like no other player, and I will have sympathy for that. You've got a bomb threat and stuff. But a lot of it is brought on. For me, seeing him go through what he's going through is not okay. I would hate to see any other parent or players go through this in the future, especially the young boys and girls breaking through the ranks today. Harry has a massive heart and it's a good job he's mentally strong and can handle it, as others may not be able to. I wish this sort of abuse on nobody. And look, I get Harry Maguire's mum is a concern. Mum, her son's getting a lot of sticks. She doesn't like it. I think I'd be the same if I was a mum. Thank God I'm not a mum, though. And, you know, he does get abuse, so that is not acceptable at all. And he does get a lot more stick than any other player. But I just think for me, you know, he just should have gone to West Ham for his own good. He needs to be taken out the firing line for England. He should have gone to West Ham. I don't think he can handle the pressure of being at a big club. I think he's a good player, Maguire. I generally do, but I don't think he was made to play for a big club. He can't handle the pressure. He's better for England when there's a little bit less pressure, when he's a little bit more protected as well. That's what I think of Maguire. And look, I personally have no issue with Maguire. I actually think there's a decent footballer there, but I don't think he's good enough to play for United. I think he's a top 8 footballer. I think he's a 7th, 8th place footballer, an Aston Villa footballer. I don't think he's a United footballer. I think he's a decent player as well. But I think he lives in a bubble if he doesn't understand why he's being criticised. He scores against Albania, puts his fingers in his ear. He has a good game. He starts posting his stats online. You know, he then does an interview saying, I've got nothing to prove. And then he does another interview saying, if I'd have been as bad as people made out, I'd been, why would Ragnick and Ollie be picking me week in, week out? He sometimes does bring it on himself, and that's where he doesn't help himself. I think had he gone to West Ham and he'd done those interviews like, yeah, you know, I need to prove myself, la-di-da, I think you get a lot more respect. But when he does interviews saying he doesn't need to prove himself, he deserves to play week in, week out, and all of this, you sometimes just look at it and you go, mate, you don't help yourself, putting your fingers in your ears versus Albania, you know, posting stats. I think he just doesn't help himself. And look, you had an opportunity to go to West Ham. We offered you a $6 million payout. You wanted 12 million. For me, you should have accepted the pay cut, because you know what? You do get abuse, and that's not acceptable. But this victim mentality that Maguire's the biggest victim of football, I don't like. Yes, he gets abused, but the scene that Southgate and the media are making is like he's the biggest victim in football. And it's like, you know what? Some of it's brought on, and maybe I'm being horrible. Maybe I am being horrible, but I think some of it is brought on. He did openly admit his England career was his main priority over his United career. So United fans aren't happy with him. You know, everyone has a right. And I think for me, we can criticise Maguire, but look, I hope he plays well for United. I hope that he proves us all wrong. And look, but no abuse to Maguire. I think criticism's okay, but no abuse. But I think a lot of it is criticism, and I think, you know, every player has a right to be criticised if they're not playing well enough. Thanks for watching. Bye.